We've partnered with eBay Motors to upgrade and modify this C6 Z06 Corvette.
And in this episode, we're finally upgrading and modifying this C6 Z06 with all the parts that we bought.
In the last episode, we bought a bunch of appearance parts, memorabilia, and performance parts.
Since we've already done the hard part and installed some of the memorabilia on ourselves, we're gonna let European Automotive do the easy part. That is, taking that engine out, installing all of the performance parts, and make this thing into a hopefully 600 horsepower to the rear wheels monster. That's about 700 crank horsepower in a car that weighs 1,300 pounds less than a Hellcat Challenger.
We got the Corvette on the hoist, a lot of parts are out. Jacob, what is going on?
Okay, so they've already started the work. They've done a number of things since we got here. The rad is already out, all the fans, all the stuff up here, the body harnesses and stuff that needs to get all disconnected, that's all coming out. We just noticed that we do need new brakes, so we're gonna go to eBay and order some new brakes for this thing.
I see the exhaust is missing.
Yeah, so they had to do a number of things. So the exhaust part of it is right here. Here's one of our kitty cats. The other one's missing. Here's our dry sump oil system. This guy's doing the work behind me. Here's our transmission. Well, actually, sorry, the transmission's all back here. Here's the torque tube. Here's the clutch, which we will be changing. The clutch is attached to the engine, and this whole engine is gonna be dropped out of the chassis. So he's actually gonna drop this car to the ground and leave the engine on the ground.
So Jacob, why are they dropping the engine? Why can't they just do the work with the engine in the car?
It's a great question. It's just a lot easier to do it once the engine's dropped. Because they're doing head work, they don't have to lean across the sides. It's easier to get the camshaft in. There's a lot that makes this job a lot easier once the engine is out of the vehicle. And because we're already doing the clutch, it's kind of the same amount of work.
All right, so cool stuff we found. Now that the car's up in the air, we have brake ducts to cool the brakes. So
look at that. Goes right there. I didn't really have any brake issues on the track other than using a lot of the pads and rotors.
Okay, what is that, Jacob?
Those are our headers, well, the original ones. You can see how kind of squished down they are. Not exactly good for airflow, so we're definitely addressing that with some higher flowing headers.
And those don't even look cool.
No, they definitely don't.
Yo, watch out. You almost got the Air Monarchs.
Oh my God.
Dirty, come on.
Thank you, sir.
Come on, let's...
Thanks, eBay. Fresh.
I'm just for the first time seeing what a leaf spring front suspension looks like.
Corvettes have leaf springs.
I did not realize that was it. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, so that goes across the entire front. So like a truck has leaf
I was expecting this way or something.
Yeah, because trucks go that way, but this way it's that way.
So I guess it's time we cue the mechanic doing the engine work montage.
Yeah, because we're not doing any of this work.
eBay Motors is one of the world's largest marketplaces for buying and selling all things automotive, offering every part for every vehicle and project.
I don't think we'll need to use the eBay money back guarantee since we checked all the seller feedback scores, but if we didn't get the item we ordered, then we get our money back, and it even applies to both new and used parts.
Hey!
Yeah!
Engine's
out!
Engine's
we did so much work!
Engine's out!
We did all of the work!
Good job, Jacob. Good job.
Yeah, good job.
We're killing it.
I really like what you did with that wrench that one time.
Yeah,
that was really good.
We've got the engine out. Jacob, what are we changing?
Now that we've got better access, we're changing these headers, we're changing these spark plugs. Look at how easy that is once the engine's out. And there's a valve drop issue apparently with some of these LS7s, so we are changing the heads, which is super easy now that the engine's out. We're changing the intake manifold, we're changing the throttle body, and a bunch of other little things, gaskets and fun stuff.
Clutch?
Yeah, clutch over there as well.
That's rated for 800 horsepower?
That's right. So this thing should be pretty stout once we're done with it.
It's cool how the suspension comes out with the engine.
Yeah, leaf spring, look at that.
And then you got to put something underneath the transmission so that the Corvettes don't backflip.
Yeah, as you can see in the background over there. Now for a bit of time traveling.
My favorite plot hole fixer.
So we're here at Race Ready Garage. This is going to be the end of the video. These are the guys that actually put the car on the dyno where we saw the original numbers in video number 2. We're going to be back here to find out how much power we make from all the engine mods that you're about to see. But first, it's time to explain what happened in the days after the engine was pulled out. The engine had to be disassembled, starting with removing the intake manifold and tossing that out. Then the valve covers came off to reveal the inside of the cylinder heads, which is where the valve guide problem is on some LS7s. Some of the steering and suspension components had to be removed to make access easier. Up next was removing the old exhaust manifolds to make room for our big beefy long tube headers. Then the cylinder heads had to be disassembled by removing the push rods and all the components that aren't coming out with the heads themselves. Once the cylinder heads were pulled off the block, a quick inspection showed that our engine was in good shape. It was also fun to see our engine builder's plaque, so thank you to PR Sage in Michigan who made sure our engine lasted at least 73,000 kilometers. Now it's built by Tom in Ontario. Then it was time to remove the timing cover and the timing chain, which was then removed to be replaced by a brand new OEM one. The most exciting part was when the cam was pulled out. The reason this is the most exciting to me is that our new aggressive cam is going to give us that chop chop at idle. So you'll know this thing means business the second you hear it. You can see how much more aggressive the new cam is by the lobes, and what you just saw was several hours of engine teardown condensed into a few minutes. With a gratuitous cam lubing shot, it was time to get the new cam back into the block and start reassembling the engine and all the new components. In went the new cam, new timing chain, and out came the torque specs and torque wrench. New lifters were unboxed, lubed up, and installed. The cylinder heads were cleaned up to make sure we had a smooth surface to avoid any head gasket issues, and then it was time to put our shiny used cylinder heads on. I wanted to make sure the heads stayed bolted on, so we opted for some ARP head bolts. It was finally starting to look like an engine again.
A lot more gaskets had to be replaced like the oil pan since we already had the engine out. It wasn't leaking, but it was much easier than having to do it later when it's in the car. Since this car is basically a race car, it has a dry sump, so the oil pan under the engine is actually quite small. The guys even power washed it to make sure we were starting fresh again. They noticed some of the motor mounts needed replacing, so the new parts were ordered. More new parts were installed, like 60-pound injectors, spark plugs, coil packs, wires, and the list keeps going. We'll spare you all the details, but now it was really looking like an engine again, with the new intake manifold on, massive throttle body, long tube headers, and a clutch rated for 800 horsepower. Once the engine was back in its home, the ram air intake went on, and it was time to start fiddling with the exhaust. To keep things environmentally friendly, we opted for high-flow cats.
Now I know what you're thinking. 7-liter V8, environmentally friendly. We put catalytic converters on it, don't freak out. It's still gonna make a lot of power, but I did see 5 liters per 100 kilometers when driven very gingerly before all of the modifications.
That's better than my Mazda CX-5.
Yeah, I think it's around 47 miles per gallon.
The rest of the Corsa exhaust was installed, fresh Continental Extreme contact force tires were mounted, and it was time to fill the car with motor oil and brake fluids, which should help us out with temperatures on track. We didn't go for a strictly track oil weight since we'll be driving it primarily on the road after this build series.
I picked up the engine computer that I dropped off earlier at Race Ready Garage. They loaded a base tune just to be able to start it. So it's finally time to see if it would start.
First start of the Corvette.
It worked!
That's good, right?
Yeah. We knew that it wouldn't want to idle because the changes we made were so significant with lots more air, a crazy cam, that we were just happy to listen to it run and check for leaks. Everything checked out, so a couple more items had to be installed. The individual brake pads were all replaced in favor of single pads as well as fresh rotors all around. It was then time for me to get my hands dirty, and I replaced the old original tinted taillights with new Morimoto LED lights. I'm an incredible mechanic. I did such a good job buying them, installing them, and making sure they worked. Probably the best part of the build. The old trunk and hood struts were replaced so that we didn't have to use a stick or a clamp to keep the hood open. Since the car couldn't drive at this point, we had Safe Auto tow it to Race Ready Garage. They were the same guys that transported the car from Alberta to Ontario for us.
And we're back to the present.
So we're at Race Ready Garage. Now let's head inside, listen to some chop chop, see where these guys are at, and see how much power we're actually gonna make with everything we just installed.
Jacob's gonna start it for the first time where it should be running pretty decently, and then we're gonna dyno it.
We haven't heard the chop chop, so let's take a listen to... Let it warm up a bit, it'll sound even better. Yes! We did it!
All right, now we gotta go to the dyno.
Yeah, one rep. All right, that's it. Good. So listening to this chop is fantastic. Now, there's a couple things that need to happen before we hear a full pull. They're gonna start to dyno tune it at slower levels first. slower speeds kind of work their way up.
They need to make sure everything is running smoothly before they start putting down the power. What do you think it's going to make?
I'm going to say 630 to the wheels.
I'm going 650.
So if we're in that ballpark, we're over 700 to the crank.
And what's a ZR1 Corvette of that generation?
They make about 638 to the crank, which is about 540-ish to the wheels. So we're gonna surpass a ZR1 for sure. I'm excited. Let's watch. So 650, 630. Okay. This is the first pull, first potentially full pull. We don't actually know yet if everything looks in line. So it's not gonna make the most power right off the bat, and then there's still a lot of tuning to go.
This is wild. I can't believe it's actually time.
What?
You'll hear me later, don't worry.
I can't hear you. Exactly. First pull, 614.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. So there's some more tuning to go.
Faster than the ZR1, or more horsepower than the ZR1.
We will. We're already.
Yeah.
Already. So this is pull number 2 after a little bit more tuning because we had a minor throttle body issue and some fueling.
Let's go 650.
622. All right, we're making more. That's good.
Read the hat, bud. Z06.
It's not a base model.
This is it. This is the final one. We're going to try to make as much power as we can.
We're doing one more run. We need 8 more horsepower to hit the number that I predicted. Made a little bit of minor changes, but those minor changes may end up hurting us, so we'll see.
Horsepower and torque.
627! That's so close! 627, 537. Holy crap.
What's that normal horsepower
Okay,
range?
so let me do the math quickly. 721 horsepower to the crank.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
Wow. More than a Hellcat already, more than a ZR1,
that's the
more than Ferraris, more than Lambos.
Our license plate is more than Hellcat.
Dude, we did it. Thank you.
We paid for it to get done.
Thank you, eBay. Thank you, eBay Motors. 721 crank horsepower.
So how much more is that?
145 more to the wheels from when we originally started the way that we bought it.
That's pretty good. And that's more horsepower than a ZR1.
Way more.
And we couldn't buy a ZR1 with the amount of money we put into this.
Not even close.
So I think that's nothing but good.
This is more special. It sounds better. Now, we have to go back to the track for the next episode where we're gonna do some more quarter-mile runs. We're gonna hopefully race an exotic car and hopefully beat it.
Put down a faster lap time than we did previously, which should be pretty easy. And then also go to a car show, see if we can win an award. And if there's no awards to give out, at least impress a lot of people.
So subscribe for the rest of the series because we're just getting started.
Just getting started. We're done almost.
Yeah, I know. Thanks, eBay Motors.